ask you a question. When was the last time you felt like you truly belonged in your own body? Not proud of it, not frustrated with it, not wishing it looked different, not trying to make it smaller, stronger, younger, faster, or healthier. I mean, when was the last time you simply felt at home? I mean, it's a question I've been sitting with for quite some time. As a therapist for nearly 30 years, I've listened to thousands of stories about anxiety and heartbreak, stories about relationships that ended, stories about grief, shame, trauma, perfectionism, people pleasing, and the quiet loneliness that so many people carry. People come into therapy believing they're there because of a relationship with someone else, like a spouse, a parent, a child, a friend, a coworker. But over the years, I've noticed something. Beneath almost every struggle is another relationship, one we rarely talk about. The relationship we're living in every single moment of every single day. Our relationship with our own body. Not the body we had 20 years ago. Not the body we hope to have someday. Not the body we compare to everyone else's. The body we're living in today. Because whether we realize it or not, every experience we have is filtered through this incredible body that has been carrying us since the day we were born. And yet, so many of us don't actually feel at home here. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Soul Talk podcast. I'm Mary Beth Rim, and I am so grateful you've chosen to spend this time with me today. If you're new here, welcome. This podcast is a place where we explore what it means to live with greater awareness, authenticity, and connection. Together, we talk about psychology, relationships, mindfulness, movement, and the quiet work of becoming more fully ourselves. If these conversations resonate with you, I'd love to invite you to subscribe to my podcast. You can also find our weekly guided meditations on YouTube. And join me on Substack, where I share reflections and practices that continue these conversations through the week. And if you've been longing for relationships that feel safe, honest, and deeply connected, I'm creating something I'm really incredibly excited to share with you. It's called the Connected Relationship Method. It's a journey that begins in a place many of us never think to start. Not by changing the people around us, but by changing the relationship we have with ourselves. Because every healthy relationship begins with connection, and connection begins within. So here's a question that I've been living with. I've been thinking a lot lately about what it really means to belong. Because we often talk about belonging as something we find in other people. We want to belong in our families, our friendships, our communities, our workplaces, our relationships. It's one of our deepest human needs. But what if the first place we're meant to belong is within ourselves? What if the safest place we could ever come home to is our own body? For many reasons, that feels almost impossible because somewhere along the way, our bodies stop feeling like home. They become projects to improve, projects to fix, projects to control, projects to hide, or perhaps even projects to ignore. We've become incredibly skilled at living from the neck up, thinking, planning, analyzing, worrying, performing, achieving. We spend so much time inside our minds that we barely notice the place that's carrying us through our lives. Our bodies quietly adapt. They carry our stress. They hold our grief. They tighten when we're afraid. They soften when we feel safe. They tell stories long before we ever have words. And yet, instead of listening, we often judge. So here's my story. You know, this conversation feels deeply personal for me. And some of you know pieces of my story. Some of you may not. I was born with a heart defect. I had a hole in my heart and a valve blockage. And when I was 10 years old, I had open heart surgery. While many of my friends were simply being kids, I was learning words like cardiologists and surgery. I remember doctor's appointments becoming part of my childhood. I remember wondering why my body seemed different from everyone else's. And looking back now, I realized that my relationship with my body began differently than it did for many people. My body wasn't something that I could take for granted. It carried a scar. It had limitations. It asked more of me than I wanted to give. Years later, in my late 20s, I began experiencing panic attacks. And if you've ever had a panic attack, you know how frightening those can be. Where your heart races, your breathing changes, your body suddenly feels unfamiliar. And you feel like you're actually going to die. And there were moments when it honestly felt like I couldn't trust my own body. I wonder if you've ever felt something similar. Maybe not through panic, maybe through illness or chronic pain or aging or loss. Or simply looking in the mirror one day and feeling like you've become a stranger to yourself. Maybe your body changed after having children. Maybe after an injury. Maybe after menopause. Maybe after grief. Whatever your story is, I imagine there have been moments when your body felt less like home and more like something you were trying to understand. So, what my body was trying to teach me, see, for a long time, I thought my body was a problem. I thought if it would just cooperate, if it would stop feeling anxious, if it would stop hurting, if it would be stronger, healthier, more predictable, then maybe I could finally relax. But over the years, something shifted. And it wasn't overnight. It was slowly, quietly, almost without me even noticing. I began to realize that my body had never been working against me. It had been working for me all along. Every racing heartbeat, every tight muscle, every exhausted afternoon, every deep breath, every tear, every goosebump, every feeling of peace. My body wasn't betraying me. It was communicating with me. It had been trying to protect me, trying to guide me, trying to tell me something I hadn't yet learned how to hear. And I started wondering, what if this is true for all of us? What if the body isn't our enemy? What if it's our oldest friend? The one who's been with us through every celebration, every heartbreak, every disappointment, every milestone, every ordinary Tuesday, the one who's never left, the one who's simply been waiting for us to come back. And as a therapist, I've come to believe that many of the struggles we experience in our relationships begin long before we ever meet another person. They begin with the relationship we're living in every single day, the relationship with ourselves. And perhaps even more specifically, the relationship with the body that carries us through this life. Because it's difficult to feel deeply connected to another person when we feel disconnected from ourselves. It's difficult to receive love when we don't feel at home or love ourselves inside our own skin. It's difficult to trust others when we've stopped trusting the quiet wisdom within us. So today, I want to spend some time exploring what it means to belong in your body, not to change it, not to fix it, not to become someone else, but to begin coming home. Because I have a feeling your body has been waiting for you. And what if your body isn't your enemy? So this thought has stayed with me for a long time. What if it's the one companion that's been with you since your very first breath? The body you're living in today has carried every version of you. The one who wanted to fit in. The teenager who questioned whether they were enough. The young adult trying to prove themselves. And the mother who carried children. The athlete training for a race. The one who grieved. The one who loved. The one who lost. And the one who got back up again. Your body has carried every single one of them. It's never left your side. And yet, for so many of us, there comes a time when we quietly leave our bodies. Not physically, emotionally, we disconnect. Sometimes, so gradually that we don't even notice it happened. So we learn to leave ourselves. I don't believe anyone is born disconnected from their body. Think about watching a young child. When they're tired, they fall asleep. When they're hungry, they eat. When they're excited, they run. When they're sad, they cry. When they're curious, they explore. There's a beautiful honesty about children. Their bodies and their emotions are in conversation with one another. They haven't yet learned to distrust themselves. But life has a way of teaching us. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it's painful. Maybe you were told not to cry because crying meant you were too sensitive. Maybe you learned to smile even when your heart was breaking. Maybe you learned that being the good one meant keeping everyone else comfortable. Maybe you became the caretaker, the achiever, the peacemaker, the one who never asked for much. And over time, many of us became incredibly skilled at reading everyone else. We learned to notice the slightest change in someone's tone of voice. We could tell when someone was upset before they ever said a word. We knew how to keep the peace, how to avoid conflict, how to make sure everyone else felt okay. But there's a quiet cost to living that way. The more attention we give to everyone else's needs, the easier it becomes to lose sight of our own. Somewhere along the way, we stop asking, what am I feeling? What do I need? What is my body trying to tell me? Instead, we ask, what does everyone else need from me? That isn't selfish. Survival. For many people, especially for women, that's how we learn to stay connected, by disconnecting from ourselves. So the body keeps speaking. And the interesting thing is, even when we stop listening, our body doesn't stop talking. It whispers before it shouts. It whispers through fatigue, through tension in our shoulders, a tight jaw, a knot in our stomach, a headache that seems to come out of just nowhere, a feeling that we're constantly rushing. We often treat these experiences like inconveniences. We reach for another cup of coffee, we push through, grab some Tylenol. We tell ourselves we'll rest later. We'll slow down next week. We'll take care of ourselves after this project, after this holiday, after the kids are grown, after retirement. There's always seems to be an after. Meanwhile, our bodies patiently keep trying to get our attention. Not because they're failing us, because they're faithful. They're constantly gathering information, helping us recognize when something doesn't feel safe, helping us recognize when we're exhausted, helping us recognize when we're carrying too much. I've often wondered how different our lives might be if we treated those signals with curiosity instead of criticism. What if that tension in your shoulders wasn't something to fight? What if it was asking for your attention? What if your exhaustion wasn't weakness? What if it was wisdom? I think many of us have become experts at living from the neck up. See, our minds are busy all day long, planning, organizing, remembering, worrying, comparing, analyzing, thinking about tomorrow, replaying yesterday, rarely noticing what's happening right here. I know I've done it too. Maybe you have. I mean, have you ever driven somewhere and realized you don't remember the drive? Or finished a meal without really tasting it? Or gone for a walk while your mind was somewhere completely different? Our bodies were present, but we weren't. We've been, we've become so accustomed to living in our thoughts that we've forgotten what it feels like to simply inhabit ourselves, to notice the rhythm of our breath, to feel our feet on the ground, the sense of warmth of the sun on our skin, to recognize that this moment is happening in a body, not just in a mind. And I think that's one of the many reasons so many people feel lonely today. Not because they're always alone, but because they're disconnected from the place where life is actually happening. Let's talk a little bit about movement. Movement was never meant to be punishment. One of the things that saddens me is how movement has changed. Somewhere along the way, movement stopped being something we did because it brought us joy. Instead, it became something we were told we had to do to earn our dinner, to fit in our clothes, to lose weight, to fight aging, to fix ourselves. But if you've listened to this podcast for any length of time, you know how much movement has meant in my life. Running has never simply been about crossing finish lines. And I'm certainly not the best or strongest or fastest runner. It has certainly never been about having the perfect body or the perfect running body. There's no such thing as that. It's been something much deeper. Running has become one of the ways I come home to myself. Some of my clearest thoughts have come while moving. Some of my deepest prayers, some of my greatest healing, some of my hardest conversations with myself. Movement has reminded me that my body isn't a machine. It's a companion. It's where I meet myself. Whether I'm running, walking, practicing yoga, meditation, or simply standing outside feeling the breeze, I'm reminded that I'm not separate from my body. I am my body. Not all of me, of course, but I cannot experience this beautiful life apart from it. Every hug, every sunrise, every tear, every laugh, every heartbeat, every mile. This body has made all of it possible. As I think of one of the greatest acts of healing isn't learning how to control our bodies. It's learning how to trust them again. See, we all want control, but we have to learn trust. To believe that they aren't working against us, and to become curious instead of critical. To move from judgment to relationship, because every meaningful relationship begins the same way. Not with perfection, but with presence. And I think presence is where belonging begins. So it's all about belonging in your body. And as I reflected on this idea of belonging in our bodies, I've realized something. I don't think most people are trying to reject their bodies. I think they're trying to feel safe in them. And that's the difference. Because when your body has been the place where you've experienced illness, or anxiety, or loss, or trauma, or heartbreak, it makes sense that you'd want to escape it. I mean, I've worked with people who have lived through unimaginable experiences, people who were hurt by those who were supposed to protect them, people who lived for years in survival mode, people whose nervous systems learned to stay alert because it wasn't safe to relax. When you've lived through something like that, disconnecting from your body isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's how your mind and body work together to help you survive. I think that's something we don't say often enough. Sometimes the ways we've protected ourselves become the very things we later need to heal. Not because they were wrong, but because we no longer need them and are in the same way. So if you've ever felt disconnected from yourself, please know this. There is nothing wrong with you. Your body has simply been doing its very best to protect you. And now, perhaps, is gently inviting you back. And coming home, it's not dramatic. I think we often imagine healing as some big breakthrough, a moment where everything suddenly changes, a transformation. But in my experience as a therapist and as a human being that's rarely how healing happens. Healing is usually much quieter. It's deciding to notice your breathing before you rush into the next meeting. It's realizing you're tired and actually allowing yourself to rest. It's recognizing the tension in your shoulders and asking, what am I carrying today? It's taking a walk without tracking your pace. It's sitting outside for 10 minutes simply because the sunshine feels good on your face. It's placing your hand over your heart and remembering, I'm here. Coming home isn't one grand gesture. It's 1,000 small moments of remembering yourself. And here's what running has taught me. And people often ask me why I run, especially now. And sometimes they'll say, you've run over 100 half marathons. Haven't you done enough? And I always kind of smile because running has never really been about the medals or the finish lines, maybe the food at the end or even the races. Running has become one of the places where I meet myself. There are days when my run feels effortless. There are days when every step feels super heavy. Days when I feel really strong. Days when I wonder why I even laced up my shoes. And somehow, every one of those runs has something to teach me. And running has taught me to listen instead of force, to respect what my body is telling me, to know the difference between discomfort that helps me grow and pain that's asking me to slow down, to celebrate what my body can do instead of criticizing what it can't. Some of my most meaningful conversations with myself haven't happened while sitting in an office. They've happened while watching the sunrise on the beach, or listening to my footsteps, or feeling my heartbeat remind me that I'm alive. After everything my heart has been through, after surgery, after panic attacks, every heartbeat feels like a gift. Every mile feels like gratitude. Running didn't give me a better body. It gave me a better relationship with the body I already had. And that has made all the difference. So here's movement as a conversation. I wonder what would happen if we stopped thinking about movement as exercise and started thinking about it as a conversation. What if every walk was your body saying, come spend a little time with me? What if stretching wasn't about becoming more flexible, but about paying attention? What if slowing down was just as valuable as speeding up? What if rest wasn't something you earned, but something your body deserved simply because it was alive? Movement isn't only about muscles. It's about presence. It's about noticing. It's about remembering that we're not a brain carrying around a body. We're whole human beings. Mind, body, heart, spirit. None of them separate. And all of them constantly influencing one another. I think we've been taught to divide ourselves into pieces. The mind is over here. The emotions are over there. The body's somewhere in the background. But that's never how we've actually lived. When we're worried, our shoulders know it. When we're grieving, our chest knows it. When we're joyful, our body smiles, our whole body smiles. When we feel safe, we breathe differently. The body has always been preparing. The body has always been participating in every moment of our lives. Maybe it's time we invited it back into the conversation. Here's a different kind of relationship. So imagine what life might feel like if you woke up tomorrow, instead of asking, "What's wrong with my body today?" you asked, "How are you today?" Imagine beginning your morning with curiosity instead of criticism. Imagine thanking your legs for carrying you, your lungs for filling with breath, your hands for holding the people you love, your heart for beating quietly, faithfully, without asking for recognition. What if your body has never expected perfection from you? What if it's all it's ever wanted is your presence? Maybe belonging isn't something we have to earn. Maybe belonging begins the moment we stop trying to become someone else and gently return to the person we've been all along. As we begin to close today's conversation, I'd like to leave you with one final reflection. Because if belonging in our bodies is possible, and I truly believe it is, then how do we begin? Not someday, not after we've healed everything, not after we've reached some imaginary version of ourselves, but today, exactly as we are. Let's talk about that together. So, belonging in your body. As we come to the end of our time together today, I'd like to ask one more question. What if there was nothing you had to change before you could begin belonging to yourself? Just notice what happens when you hear that. Because most of us have spent years believing that belonging is something we earn. I'll belong when I lose the weight. I'll belong when I feel more confident, when my anxiety is gone, when I'm healthier, when I'm stronger. I stop making mistakes. When I finally become the version of myself I've been chasing. But what if belonging has never worked that way? What if belonging isn't the reward for becoming someone else? What if it's the beginning of becoming more fully yourself? I wonder how much our lives we've spent postponing our own presence, waiting for the right body, the right age, the right season, the right circumstances. Meanwhile, life has been happening. Our children have grown. The seasons have changed. People we've loved have come and gone. Sunrises we've never noticed. Walks we've rushed through. Meals we've eaten without tasting. Conversations we've had while our minds were somewhere else. Life has been quietly inviting us to participate, not someday, today, and the place where we experience all of it is through this remarkable body. Your body has never left you. One of the things that moves me most is realizing that no matter how many times I've ignored my body, it has never stopped showing up for me. It kept breathing while I slept. It healed wounds I never had to think about. It carried me through heartbreak, carried me through joy, carried me through fear, carried me through the ordinary days that make up a lifetime. When I think about that, I can't help but feel grateful. Grateful for this heart that has beaten faithfully since before I was born. A heart that needed help when I was 10 years old. A heart that has known fear. A heart that has known peace. A heart that still beats today. I don't take that for granted anymore. As I've gotten older, I've become less interested in asking my body to be perfect. I'm much more interested in thanking it for being faithful. Maybe that's what aging has been teaching me. Not to mourn everything that's changing, but to appreciate everything that's still possible, to celebrate that I can still lace up my running shoes, still walk beside people I love, still hug my grandchildren, still watch the sunrise, still breathe deeply, still laugh, learn, still grow. What a gift that is. If you've listened to this podcast for a while, you've probably noticed I often use the phrase coming home to yourself. I don't use those words lightly because I truly believe that's what healing is. Healing isn't becoming someone you've never been. It's remembering the person who has always been there beneath the fear, beneath the expectations, beneath the roles you've played, beneath the masks you've worn. Healing is returning. It's coming home. And perhaps one of the first places we come home is our body. Not because it's perfect, but because it's ours. It's where we meet life. It's where we experience love. It's where we carry grief. It's where we discover joy. It's where we learn resilience. It's where we begin again. Your body isn't simply the place where your life happens. It is part of your life, part of your story, part of your healing, part of who you are. So here's a gentle practice. So before we finish today, I'd like to leave you with something simple. You don't have to meditate for an hour. You don't have to train for a marathon. You don't have to change your diet. Just begin noticing. Sometime today, place a hand over your heart. Take one slow breath. Feel your feet on the ground. And quietly ask yourself, how are we today? Not what's wrong with you. Not why can't you do more. Simply, how are you? Because you and your body have always been a team. Maybe it's time to start treating each other that way. And if your body answers with fatigue, honor it. If it answers with joy, celebrate it. If it answers with sadness, sit with it. If it answers with peace, stay there a little longer. You don't have to fix every feeling. Sometimes the most healing thing we can do is simply stay. As we move through this week together, our meditations are going to be an invitation to continue this conversation. We'll explore what it means to listen instead of judge, to move instead of perform, to breathe instead of rush, to thank our bodies instead of criticizing them, to discover little by little what it feels like to belong in the place we've been living all along. Because here's what I hope you remember after today's conversation. Your body has never asked you to be perfect. It has simply asked you to be present. And maybe, just maybe, presence is where belonging begins. I want to thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If this episode touched something in your heart, I'd love for you to share it with someone who might need this reminder too. And make sure you subscribe to my podcast or YouTube channel so you don't miss next week's conversation. And if you'd like to continue this journey, you'll find my guided meditations also on YouTube and additional reflections over on Substack. Be gentle with yourself. Be curious about yourself. And wherever life takes you this week, may you remember that you don't have to earn your place here. You already belong right here in your own beautiful, remarkable body. Until next time, I'm Mary Beth Rim.